who try to stop your mission and keep you from collecting all the artifacts. Now, you're one of them, and the bonus equipment and ship is just the beginning. You now take the trip to Constellation and use special Starborn dialogue options that let you use all the knowledge of things that happened in the first run.
Reasons, and along the way, Charizard can easily handle every trainer battle. It's all very similar to Mount Moon. Soon enough, I make it to Celadon and get the Rainbow Badge with ease. Before I can move on though, I have a couple errands to run. First, I pick up the third member of the team from a table on the roof of this building. Then, I teach Gyarados Water Pulse and head to the department store to buy a Thunderstone, which I'll be using to evolve Eevee into Jolteon. I make a quick stop at the casino to go into the Rocket Hideout, where I face Giovanni for the first time. Then, I head back into the casino to spend my nugget money on coins, which I can then use to buy two important prizes, the TM for Thunderbolt and an Abra, the fourth member of the team, though I won't be training Abra at all. Now, it's time to train Eevee in the daycare in preparation for the Elite Four. Between here and the Champion, there's quite a few more gyms and tough trainer battles, but it would take forever to talk about all of them. Instead, I'd like to give you an in-depth look at just one of these battles, to give a sense of what battles look like when I can't one-hit KO every Pokemon.
You've done it all in Minecraft. Now what? Completed all the achievements? Killed every monster? Now is the time to unlock an entirely new experience with 1,000 new mod packs. Explore modern times. Travel to the far future. Be a scientist. Survive a zombie apocalypse. Minecraft can be anything you dream of with Scale-A-Cube. Create your own mod pack server and play with your friends.
Before we get to the battle, Eevee needs to be trained. This time, it will take a brief 24 hours, and I'll be training Eevee to level 87. Then, I'll use a Thunderstone to evolve into Jolteon, which has the high speed and attack stats needed to succeed. Jolteon can be taught Thunderbolt through the TM that I bought, and will be the main source of damage on the team from now on. When Jolteon's training finally finishes, I can head to Lavender Town and climb Pokemon Tower for the Pokeflute. Then, I head to Silphco, where I face off against my rival and talk to this scientist to pick up the fifth member of the team, Lapras. Much like Abra, I also won't be training Lapras at all. For most of this game, my Pokemon have been over-leveled, but Giovanni represents the first major battle that I can't just bulldoze through, and the first major battle where it's not necessary to one-hit KO every enemy Pokemon. At the start of the battle, Jolteon takes down Nidorino with Thunderbolt, but then the problems begin when Giovanni sends out Nidoqueen. Jolteon is unable to one-hit KO Nidoqueen, and Nidoqueen knows Body Slam, which can paralyze. Paralysis is not a condition I can deal with, since it could cause me to skip a turn, and I wouldn't know it. I can't afford to let Jolteon get paralyzed, so I send out Charizard instead. Charizard also can't one-hit KO Nidoqueen, but Flamethrower will lower Nidoqueen's health enough that Gyarados can take care of the rest. But this is where things get tricky. Flamethrower can either do a normal amount of damage and leave Nidoqueen alive, or it could crit and KO Nidoqueen. Or it could burn Nidoqueen and leave her alive, or if it's a particularly strong Charizard, it could burn, and then the burn could KO Nidoqueen. Meanwhile, Charizard is potentially paralyzed, which forces a switch. Switching Pokemon takes a turn, which means I can't just send Gyarados out immediately, or I'll just get paralyzed again. To take initiative back, I need one of my Pokemon to faint, which will let me send out a new one for free. I could send out Abra, since Abra is the lowest level and would faint the quickest, but I actually have to send out Lapras. This is because the AI is programmed to prefer sending out Pokemon with a super effective move against your current battler, and I need Giovanni to send Rhyhorn out after Nidoqueen. But there's another problem. In two of these scenarios, Nidoqueen has already fainted. These two scenarios are functionally identical though, and can be treated as one. In this case, I can use the text prompts from Nidoqueen fainting to prevent directional inputs from affecting this scenario while I send out Lapras in the others. Once Lapras is out, I only need to press A to use Mist while I stall for 16 turns, the maximum number of turns the strongest Lapras could survive versus the unluckiest Nidoqueen. In the cases where Nidoqueen has already fainted, pressing A opens the Pokemon menu and continually attempts to swap out Charizard, which the game will not allow. This causes a loop. Meanwhile, in the scenario where Nidoqueen is burned, there's a chance the burn KOs on the first or second turn, and Lapras survives. Since I'm just pressing A during this time, I don't have to worry too much, as I will just open the Pokemon menu and enter another loop, keeping this scenario stalled. In the final scenario, Lapras stalls and faints as planned, and all three parallel universes end up on the Pokemon select screen, though they are all slightly different. When the 16 turns are up, I want to send out Gyarados, either to finish off Nidoqueen or to KO Rhyhorn, but there's an additional 2 scenarios that I have to deal with. Depending on the turn Lapras faints, the current state of the menu could be different. Either there's no menu, a text box, or the shift menu currently open. I can use the following button sequence to resolve all 5 scenarios. Press down 3 times to get non-menu scenarios selecting Gyarados, and menu scenarios on cancel. Text box scenarios are unaffected by directional inputs. Then, press A twice, which either sends out Gyarados, closes the text box and opens the shift menu, or closes the shift menu and reopens it, syncing these 2 scenarios. Next, I press B to close out of the menu, followed by down 3 times to select Gyarados. If Gyarados is already out, B does nothing, and down inputs bring the cursor to Pokemon. Then, I can press A twice to send out Gyarados. This opens the Pokemon menu and the shift menu in the first scenario, but with only a couple extra B inputs to close out of the menus, and an up input to move from Pokemon to fight in the first scenario, the discrepancies are resolved, and I can continue with the original 3 scenarios. I can have Gyarados use Water Pulse regardless of the scenario, since it will finish off a weakened Nidoqueen and one-hit KO Rhyhorn. Either way, I can press B through the text prompts and say no to switching, since I need Gyarados to deal with Rhyhorn in this scenario. Against Kangaskhan, using Water Pulse could potentially KO if it confuses and crits. Once again, I can use the text prompts to prevent a down input from affecting these 2 scenarios while I get in position to swap Jolteon out in the third. I can press A several times to advance text prompts while stalling, and then when I'm ready, I can send out Jolteon in both of these scenarios. There's actually a bonus scenario here, since Kangaskhan knows Fake Out, which is a priority move and a guaranteed flinch, but only on the first turn the user is out. I can use Thunderbolt in all 3 scenarios, but I might get flinched, though in the other scenarios, this is guaranteed to end the fight. I press B a bunch to finish off the text prompts and sync these 3 scenarios. Then, I can use Thunderbolt again, since Fake Out can't be used twice, and end the fight in this last one. The A and B inputs don't affect the other scenarios at all. With a couple more B inputs, everything is synced back up, and Giovanni is defeated. Well, actually, there's 6 unique parallel universes at the end of this fight. Depending on the circumstances, the experience from Nidoqueen could go to Charizard, Lapras, or Gyarados, creating a 3-way discrepancy. Then, the experience from Kangaskhan could go to either Gyarados or Jolteon. Together, this creates 6 unique scenarios, which I have to keep in mind from this point on. There's also one other scenario we didn't talk about, which is if Charizard gets poisoned versus Nidoqueen. Since poison continues to deal damage in the overworld, I don't want to get interrupted by a text prompt telling me Charizard has fainted while walking around. So I quickly run back and forth in this hallway to force any poisoned Charizards to faint before aligning myself against a wall to sync up and then move on. Though there are 6 parallel universes active, there's really only 2 that matter. The ones where Jolteon got the experience for Kangaskhan, and the ones where Jolteon didn't. So I'll be showing those two, but keeping all 6 in mind. With Giovanni out of the way, I talked to the Silph Co president to get the Master Ball, which will allow me to actually catch a Pokemon, so long as I can guarantee an encounter with it. I'll be using the Master Ball to capture Articuno, since I need an Ice type to deal with Dragon and Ground types. Once I capture Articuno, my team will be complete, and I'll be ready to face the Elite Four. But until then, there's still 4 gyms to deal with.
Ever heard of the Hexen Circle? As the spooky name suggests, it's a secret society. Once upon a time, it even challenged the Animal Archon himself. But he replied, "Let us make music, not war, and resolve our conflicts through song." From then on, the mages would only ever convene in the woods, in the skies, or on the edges of cliffs.
Ganitoan.
Finally, we make it to this NPC, who you might remember from before. There's actually only one wandering NPC in the entire game that I can't avoid, and that's this guy. More on him later. Well, it's later. There are indeed other wandering NPCs in the game, but I can outright avoid all of them. In fact, this bridge has so many wandering trainers on it that navigating it would be impossible.